welcome in. Here it is, Week 14, the look ahead. It's crazy when we even consider that right now. Week 13 for the NFL season is this week. You are not crazy, but you are watching the look ahead. Teddy Covers, Joe Raineri, and our job here is to do just that. Look ahead to next week, which will be Week 14 in the NFL. Just a couple of more of these look aheads at this particular point there, Teddy. We're getting to that time in the season where, interesting enough, with the playoffs are going to be a little different, an extra team. I don't know, it still, does it feel like Week 13 and 14 in your mind in the NFL season, or do you feel like we're still like Week 5 or 6 here?
It always feels like, the NFL season always seems to go in a flash. Spend all year thinking about it, ridiculous. And then it's here and then it's gone. All that said, this year feels shorter in a sense because there was no preseason. So you didn't have all that August football that we're used to when we're used to betting on. It just, boom, all of a sudden here we are, the second week of September and there are games. So, but it feels like Week 13, Week 14, it is what it is. Of course, when it comes to the look-ahead lines, the books publish them for every week except Week 17. When it comes to Week 17, they don't put them out Week 16. So We'll keep doing the show Week 14, Week 15, Week 16 to give you guys an idea of where the lines are for next week's games before this week's games have been played. So you can see what kind of adjustments the books make, what kind of adjustments the markets make based on results, and, of course, based on injuries. And we'll see if we can find any early value. We've been pretty good at identifying some of these spots in previous look-ahead line shows. We'll see if we can find one or two today that make a whole lot of sense to bet a week before the games get played.
And for those of you that are new to this, we are looking for a certain look on Teddy's face when we get it, and you'll know it. Just watch, guys. You will get it, and you will know it. Teddy does not know the lines, has no ideas. He's got his power ratings there. I'm going to give him what the look-ahead line is. Pure reaction here. He'll compare it, and we'll see if we can find some value there. And we'll start on the Thursday night game. The New England Patriots traveling to L.A. to take on the Rams. The Rams, 6.5 points. They will be favorites at home against those New England Patriots. What says you here in the beginning of Week 14 with the Patriots and Rams?
That feels a little high based on my number, but not substantially high.
Okay.
My number would be, I've got a 4-point powering differential between the two teams right now. And I downgraded the Rams off of last week's loss to the 49ers because the same thing keeps happening to them. Every time they place a good defense, Jared Goff stinks.
Yep.
And the Patriots have a pretty good defense. So that's, in theory, the strength of the team. So my number does come a little bit shorter given the travel spot for New England. I haven't checked to see what their status is in terms of staying out west after they play this week. They have a game this week. What am I spacing on it? The Patriots play on the West Coast, don't they?
I believe, yes. As a matter of fact, New England is
the Chargers.
Arizona.
Yeah, of course, the pick 'em game the Chargers.
I'm sorry, Arizona. They played Arizona.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I haven't checked to see what their travel status is for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, Belichick's a coach who takes his team on the road and will leave them there for the second week.
Right.
That said, again, my powering number is 5.5. The current market's at 6.5. If the Patriots beat the Chargers, then it's a winning streak.
Yep.
And then we start to see a little bit more market support for New England. If they lose to the Chargers, of course, they'll be out of the playoff chase, essentially. And I would think the markets may well react accordingly. It's the type of story where if you like New England this week, it makes sense to make two bets, bet on both games. If you want to bet against the Patriots this week, it makes sense to bet both games perhaps right now as well. Again, if New England loses, this number is likely to be higher than 6.5, I would think.
Absolutely.
I really do.
Yep, absolutely. We'll go to the weekend, next weekend, Week 14. The Green Bay Packers got back on the winning ways there in a big way last week against the Bears. They are going to be taking on the other division foe there that is completely upheaval, the Detroit Lions. In Detroit, and Green Bay will be laying 7 as a away favorite there in Detroit. What's your number on this one?
Yeah, so I've got a 10-point powering differential between the two teams.
On neutral.
So that would put the Packers at higher than a touchdown.
Yep.
In Detroit. There's already been market support for the Lions this week in Chicago against the Bears.
Yep.
They're expecting the fired head coach kick. They're expecting perhaps another dismal showing from the Bears. I think that's part A. Both are pieces of the equation why we've seen so much money for Detroit.
Yep.
Even if they beat the Bears straight up, I don't think that we're going to see the market start tilting towards the Lions as a team primed to put on a winning streak. That said, if you look at some of Detroit's biggest issues, they've been injury related, not COVID related. They've been, when you're missing Galladay and you're missing Amendola and you're missing Swift and you're missing Okuda every week.
Yep.
Your best cover corner in theory, and then your top three playmakers on offense. If those guys come back, Detroit gets better. They get better day one, and they're all questionable this week. So by next week, they may be healthier, and that may warrant the line being as low as 7. But at first glance, that seems a little bit short to me.
Love it. Tennessee, the Titans, back in everyone's favor there. Got a whole lot of support last week there against what has been the darlings of the market world, the Indianapolis Colts. They took care of business. They'll be going to Jacksonville, a team that everyone goes like they tilt their head when you say Jacksonville and you throw the number out there because it's Jacksonville. And, oh, yeah, by the way, Tennessee will be in Florida, and they'll bring 9.5 points with them against those Jacksonville Jaguars. What says you on this?
So I've got an 11-point powering differential.
Okay.
Put the game in Jacksonville. You had a point. And again, we're not using a full home field this year.
Yep.
The Jags have had a decently strong home field. They've had a crowd, fans in attendance, I believe, for every game.
Yep.
I'd probably give them 1.5. Maybe you want to give them 2 points. That puts it right at 9.
Yep.
With the 11-point differential. And I mean, if the Jags this week go up to Minnesota and win, or play competitively again, a little bit of a partially misleading final score against the Browns last week. Jacksonville came in through the back door. They were about to lose by 8, and then there was one of these penalties on the 4th down sack that kept them alive. But more than that, the Browns they left a lot of points on the board in that game. They really did. Jacksonville has issues with their defensive coaching staff and their defensive personnel that's very, very real. And certainly they'll be playing a team that is capable of exploiting those weaknesses.
Yeah.
And that being said, it's a divisional game as well. So it's not like it's like the Tennessee's like to look past it.
Exactly. And it'll be interesting too. This is Tennessee right around this time last year too. They really started to hit their groove right in through the playoffs. So they don't take these games lightly. I don't see it from a Vrabel coach team, but it's still going to be looking at double digits any which way you cut it maybe at some point. And the Cowboys, another one of those head-scratching teams this year, 3.5 points they'll be taking to Cincinnati. Cincinnati, of course, almost doing the unthinkable, beating the Giants without Joe Burrow. But Dallas, we're going to be a road favorite. Hard to believe, but Dallas is a road favorite of 3.5 points here. And by the way, Cincinnati, they played well. I mean, they certainly played well enough to win that game against the Giants.
You got the look, Joe.
Yeah,
you didn't notice it. 3.5, Dallas?
I know. That's what I'm saying.
That's
it's
too
like.
Okay, it's not coming 3.5. Okay, the look was there right.
Perfect.
You're like, Dallas can't lay 3.5 on the road. Okay. And again, my power rankings are going to. We'll talk about that in just a minute.
Right.
It's not just Burrow for Cincinnati. Remember, they just took their practice squad quarterback and moved him to the starting position. Okay, they're minus their starting cornerbacks. That may be the biggest issue of all against Dallas, in theory. Both starting cornerbacks out for Cincy long term.
Yep.
They have issues. Not like the Cowboys don't. But from a power rating standpoint right now, I mean, I've got a 3-point differential between these two teams on a neutral. Dallas up in the cold. You're talking about Cowboys at 1.5. And, of course, we are talking about the key number of 3.
Yes.
Where 3.5s and 2.5s matter. And my number's 1.5, and the markets are at 3.5. That's enough of a differential to take a peek if you want to be putting your money on teams like the Bengals in December, which oftentimes is difficult to do. And I don't, it's one of those deals that, yeah, that line sounds wrong, but do I really want, one thing I don't want to do in December is bet on dead teams.
That's correct.
And we'll see how dead Cincinnati actually is. This, they showed some life against the Giants, but again, when you get a kick return touchdown, it helps in that regard.
Yep.
When the Giants settle for field goals and lose their quarterback, it helps in that regard.
Yep.
So the final score in that game was closer than the game actually was.
It's a 3.5. This is now the second out of the last 3 weeks, guys, in a look ahead that we've gotten to a Cincinnati Bengals game, because it happened to us 2 weeks ago with the Giants, where the Bengals were a 3.5 point favorite in the look ahead spot. And then, of course, Burrow went down and that number went completely the other way. So keep an eye on that game at 3.5 at this point, guys. And those Giants, speaking of which, they'll be home week 14 against a team heading back to the East Coast, the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona laying 3 on the road against the New York Giants. Don't know what the status, of course, of Daniel Jones is at this particular point for this week, much less next week, but Arizona, a 3-point road favorite at MetLife.
So I'm very surprised that we have a point spread up for this game.
Ooh,
because in my mind, we don't know if Daniel Jones is going to play this week. We don't know if he's going to be healthy enough to play next week. And there's at least a field goal between Daniel Jones and Colt McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this isn't one of those stories where it's, okay, Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles or Tyler Bray, and you can put any of them in and the offense is still going to stink. And you don't adjust the power ratings at all for Chicago based on the quarterback. You're just going to adjust your Giants power rating. Colt McCoy is not an NFL starting quarterback. Daniel Jones is.
Yep.
Colt McCoy can run some option and can throw passes to the flat. Colt McCoy is not testing anyone deep downfield. So the Giants are playing. Who is it?
Arizona at home.
Yeah. Arizona. Yeah. So the difference I have a 4-point differential between the two teams with a healthy Daniel Jones. At Arizona, 4 points better, and that's in MetLife.
MetLife, yep.
Yeah, yes, which makes the number, right around 3.
Right around there. Yep, right around there.
Makes a ton of sense. Arizona, from a travel stand, it's a tough travel spot for Arizona. Another
time.
West Coast, another trip all the way back east. Yep. They've made a number of those in recent weeks, and they're coming in between divisional games. It's not a great spot for Arizona. I can tell you that, even without looking at them thoroughly. A huge divisional showdown this week. That's a huge game for Zona.
Yep.
And then next week traveling all the way to the other coast to face a lesser opponent. Yeah, it is. But I don't see it. I'm not looking at it going, there's great value either one way or the other.
Right.
It depends on Daniel Jones versus Colt McCoy. Again, a field goal difference. And that might be short. Daniel Jones might be worth 4 points over McCoy. Might be worth 5 points over McCoy. I just adjusted a field goal. We'll know more this week.
Short hop McCoy. That's it, man. Thrown out to the flat and one hopping you. I love it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what he can do.
That's it.
And he does it fine.
Great as a backup in an emergency situation, but hurry up, Daniel Jones. Get back in there. Giants have an opportunity, of course, to take the NFC least crown, which is still hard to believe. How about the Texans? The Texans now heading to Chicago. Two very Houston at least had some offense, although they lost another weapon there for Deshaun Watson. 1.5. They will be a favorite in Chicago for this game in Week 14. Are they about even in your book? What do you have with the numbers?
So I downgraded Houston significantly off the Will Fuller info.
Yep.
Okay, Will Fuller makes the passing game run.
Right.
All right. I've seen 18 quotes this year from Deshaun Watson talking about, I'm glad we didn't trade Fuller. Fuller's my man. Fuller. And when you watch the offense, he looks for Fuller. And Fuller's the guy who's making plays. And Fuller's the guy who's scoring touchdowns. And Fuller has now been suspended for the rest of the year and the first game next season. That's a significant loss. And the market's going to look at that and adjust maybe a point, not even a half point for Houston. You can make an argument that Fuller's absence is worth a field goal for the Texans. You really can't.
Yep.
And so my number here is pick 'em. That's I've got a 1.5 worth of differential. And it's the other thing people have to remember about the Bears. I understand they've lost 5 in a row. I understand the defense finally quit this week after the offense stinks so bad.
Yep.
All that said, pull up the schedule. Look who Chicago's faced the last 5 weeks.
Been nuts.
All better teams than this. I mean, they faced quality opponent every single week, and they're not better than quality opponents.
No.
The Texans do one thing well. They throw the football. Deshaun Watson is incredible. The passing game, when clicking, is nearly unstoppable. But when you lose your best deep threat, the guy that makes the offense run besides the quarterback, that leaves Houston doing less things well. Really disappointed. I wanted to take the Texans this week. I thought they might be a real bet-on team down the stretch. And that Fuller suspension is an enormous, one of the bigger non-QB injuries you'll find in terms of how I'm going to adjust my power ratings.
Not sure who the quarterback's going to be in for this game, but there is a lineup. The Denver Broncos will be traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers, who did everything but win the game against Minnesota there last week. Carolina is going to be a 4-point home favorite against Denver. One can only imagine that Drew Lock will be ready for this game. Again, this is week 14. Where do you have these two teams rated right now?
So the markets are expecting Denver's quarterback situation to be solved by Sunday.
Right.
They're looking at last week. Nobody actually had. There may be positive tests, but in terms of there are no symptoms.
Right.
All right. And that's, and they're, so we're expecting to see Drew Lock. They're expecting to see Drew Lock this week. If it's Kendall Hinton, we already know what the market, I mean, that was pretty rough. He did complete 3 passes, although 2 of them went to the other team. And they dropped, I don't know how many interceptions. He only threw the ball 9 times, and it felt like they dropped 7 interceptions. He completed 1 pass.
They looked so surprised that the ball was in their hand, like they couldn't believe, is he really throwing it at me?
Yeah, it was. And I was fascinated to see what the Broncos were going to do. Of all the games, that was the one I was most interested in watching. For about a half.
Yeah. Then you realize what you were watching.
Well, I thought that there might be more of an intriguing game plan from the Broncos in terms of getting different guys involved and what do you do when you don't have a quarterback and how can you try. And this year, where you don't have we have issues everywhere. There was a surprising lack of adjustment for Denver. You asked me what my power rating differential between the two teams. This is a Denver with a QB healthy number.
Okay.
I've got a 3.5 point differential between the two teams.
Close. Yep.
So it makes it a little bit shorter. This game is in Denver or in Carolina?
No, it's in Carolina. Carolina's laying 4.
Yeah, so my number would be a little bit higher. It'd be more like 5.
Right.
But it's not a significant. It's not one of these where you I got to run and go bet this. We're not talking about a key number or something like that. But yeah.
Nope.
And if the Broncos get wiped out again this week, the markets may well crash. I mean, Denver's had such a tough season. From training camp, I bet the Broncos over 7.5 wins in the morning, and that afternoon Von Miller got out for the year. And from that time, it's been one thing. I mean, literally one thing after the next. They've had, you talk about Philly having a rough year, San Fran having a rough year. The Broncos are right there with them when it comes to they've been devastated on every position group.
Talking about tough year, ups and downs. How about the Minnesota Vikings traveling to the AARP club in Tampa, taking on Mr. Tom Brady there. The Bucs are going to be a 6.5 point home favorite against the Minnesota Vikings. 6.5 for Tom Brady and company against the Vikings at home. Where do you have this rated? Uh-oh.
Field goal.
Really?
Field goal. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
How good's Tampa Bay?
I don't know. Listen, they're a good run defense. I don't know about anything else.
That's what the Bucs can do.
That's it.
They can stop the run.
Yep.
That's their strong suit. They can come through the back door.
Yes. Because they can throw the ball up at the end.
I've been viewing Minnesota as a very live team in recent weeks. And I know they didn't cover against Carolina. Okay. They had 2 defensive touchdowns against them and won the game. When you're a bad team, you don't win those kind of games.
Nope.
And the Kirk Cousins quotes, the quotes from the locker room, there are multiple quotes from the locker room after the game talking about We believe in each other. The team chemistry here is real. High character guys, et cetera, et cetera. Not getting that sense in Tampa.
No.
6.5 seems high to me.
Yep.
It really does. And again, we have Minnesota is going to kill Jacksonville this week in theory.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So it's not like the Vikings, are going to lose value off of that. I wouldn't argue with making a play on the Vikes at that attractive price right now.
Yep. It's because I don't see it. It could be one of those correlated bets at this point over there, as Tampa continues to be a little bit overvalued for what they're delivering out on the field. The Kansas City Chiefs, I'm looking forward to this game, Week 14, too. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Give me 1 second back on Tampa.
Go. Yes.
I just realized. Because Tampa will be coming off a bye. They're coming off back-to-back losses and a bye.
You're right. That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So that does oftentimes after a bye. I said it was 3. I'll oftentimes give a team a full point coming off a bye week, rested, ready, and focused on one opponent. That makes the number more like 4.
All right.
So it's
still a little bit closer.
Shows a little bit of value towards Minnesota, but it's not a correlation situation. The Vikings take care of business against Jacksonville. Let's say they win the game by only a touchdown.
You're gonna,
I still think the number's a little bit high for Tampa, but again, this is my powering number. When you ask me off the top of my head, what number would you make? Right. 6.5 sounds right. You know what I mean? It feels so. I think there's a little bit of value on the Minnesota side, but it's not you got to go run to the window and bet this.
Whether they win by 7 or win by 27, it's probably going to be 6.5, unless something crazy happens where they get blown out by Jacksonville. Then the number will creep towards Tampa. But at this point, it is what it is. Yeah. It's about where it should be. Interesting game coming up. Kansas City on the road here in my backyard, taking on the Miami Dolphins. And Kansas City, boy, old AFC matchup here. I love this. 7.5 points Kansas City will be bringing with them here to South Florida. How do you have these two teams rated right now? And I should say, are we going to go, who's the quarterback on your rating right now?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter for you. Okay, good.
Doesn't matter at all. Okay. Between two and Ryan Fitzpatrick get power rated the same.
Same thing. Perfect.
I would probably, in my mind, I got Fitzpatrick maybe a half point or a point better.
Okay.
But it's not enough, especially for a home game. I'm more worried about 2 on the highway.
Yep.
But I have a 7.5 point differential between the two teams on a neutral, which makes the number a little bit shorter. But like I said, I think I say this every week on the show. I've been off market on Miami for weeks now.
It's true.
And it continues to pay dividends.
Yep.
So let the markets undervalue the Dolphins and tell me how the Dolphins' offensive stats aren't any good.
Yep.
And I'm going to show you the best special teams in the NFL and one of the best defenses in the NFL and an offense that doesn't make the big mistakes that cost them games.
Yep.
And that's fine with me. Love teams like that. Not flashy on offense, great in the other 2 units. Markets stay off, they low. But look, their yards per play differential isn't what it is. Oh, look, they're not. Mm-hmm. The reason when you have dominant special teams, it makes your offense look worse because you have shorter fields and you don't gain the yards. Okay? So Miami, without a shadow of a doubt, the best special teams in the NFL. It's not really close.
Yep.
All these short fields, all these cheap points, and the markets look at that and say, Miami's not as good. I look at that and say, no, you're not looking at Miami's third unit properly. They're just fine. So, like I said, my number
3 phases of the game. Neutral, 3 phases.
Which makes 6.
Yep. I like that. I'm looking forward to seeing that game there. It'll be a good litmus test for the Miami Dolphins and seeing where they're at. As Kansas City, by the way, going back to the place they just held the trophy back in February as they take on the Miami Dolphins. How about
KC? KC will also be coming off another divisional game.
Yeah.
And the last 3 weeks, KC win no cover, win no cover, win no cover.
Yep.
The markets have caught up with the Chiefs. They haven't caught up with the Dolphins yet.
Yep.
7.5 to me seems, you know what I'm thinking.
I know. That's exactly it. How about the darlings there, the Indianapolis Colts, the market darlings, They are traveling to your neck of the woods, taking on the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Colts, again, it seems like every time we look at the Colts, they're a favorite of at least a field goal. Here it is, 2.5. They're a 2.5-point favorite on the road against the Raiders here. Where do you have these two teams?
So I've got Indy a 1.5 better on a neutral, which makes them a pick 'em in Vegas.
Okay.
The Raiders are playing the Jets this week. If they blow out the Jets, if they don't look good against the Jets, it's a whole different ball of wax.
Different animal, yes. Yep.
If the Raiders take care of business against the Jets like they're supposed to, I don't think necessarily Indy's going to come as the favorite.
Gotcha.
And just as importantly, the Colts injury report, they're 3-point favorites at Houston this week.
Right.
Their injury report is ugly with key guys on both sides of football, whether it's DeForest Buckner, whether it's Anthony Castillo. When you talk about your best defensive lineman, your best offensive lineman, your left tackle, you don't want Phillip Rivers taking hits. All right?
Nope.
The offense didn't work after Costanzo went out against Tennessee. That's an impact injury. The markets are going,
That's correct.
So you want to be aware of Indy's injury report. If these guys come back healthy, there were multiple key injuries besides the 3 in game last week against Tennessee, besides the 3 key defensive players that didn't play at all.
That's it.
For the Colts. So it's an injury report you want to pay attention to before you get involved.
The Jets traveling to Seattle, and the Seahawks will be giving the poor Jets 15 points, walking them into their home building there. 2-touchdown favorite for the Hawks here. How do you even rate the Jets at this point?
I rate the Jets 2 points worse than Cincy, 2.5 points worse than Jacksonville, 4.5 points worse than Detroit.
Okay.
I mean, you get a number.
That's it.
That's how you rate the Jets. You rate the Jets as the worst team in the NFL.
Yep.
My number's 14 on a neutral. So 15 in Seattle makes sense.
Sure. Makes exactly.
And I can't envision, again, if the Jets pull the upset over the Raiders this week and get the win, okay, they're still going to be 15 in Jacksonville. Hey, you got your win, now you let down.
This ain't going anywhere.
It's not going to make any.
This line ain't going anywhere, guys. How about the Falcons? Here's an interesting game. Falcons heading on the road, taking on the Chargers. It's a pick 'em. Are these two teams a pick 'em in your mind?
Atlanta at LA is. I've got the Chargers -1.
Same. Okay. Yep.
And the Chargers are in a pick 'em game this week against the Patriots.
Patriots, yeah.
If they lose another, the Chargers are 4-16 in one-score games.
Yep.
It's so funny because when I handicap that game, I'm like, boy, the Chargers are better than New England.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I trust the Chargers to win a close game? No. Do I trust the Patriots to win a close game? Yes. Am I going to get involved with it, thinking that the Chargers are better than the Patriots? I'm not.
Right.
But yeah, my number there comes Chargers 1. If the Chargers start to win, the markets are going to hop on that team.
Yes,
okay.
They're waiting to.
Everyone sees what we see, that the Chargers are better than their record. They're better than the stats would indicate, really on both sides of the ball. But they can't get out of their own way. And, of course, it's a lame duck coaching staff there as well, barring a 5-game winning streak to end the season.
Yeah, and they know it. Atlanta already has the lame duck. They already got what they know where they're heading right there. So
again, the Falcons this week have the Saints. They're 4-2 since Raheem Morris took over.
Yep.
If they pull off the upset against New Orleans, there will be there's been a surprising amount of Falcons money in the markets. In fact, I'll digress for a minute. When I do the opening line report on Monday, I've got friends in the chat who are talking about whether they agree with me or disagree. My friend Las Vegas Chris, who's one of the cappers of our Wager Talk, when I was talking about the Saints and the Falcons game, I'm like, I think the money's going to come for Atlanta. If you like +3.5, take the Falcons now. And Chris in the chat going, no, I don't see it. And the markets now are down to 3. Which was what not to say that Chris is really good at this stuff, okay? But the thing that I think he missed about this Falcons team, the markets aren't viewing Atlanta as a losing team. The markets are viewing Atlanta as a 4-2 team that's playing hard for their coach, Morris, and Morris is coaching for a potential to have the job next year. And this isn't a team that's dead in the water. And, of course, the Falcons have been really good down the stretch in recent seasons. That's how Dan Quinn saved his job every year. As soon as Matt Ryan's out of playoff contention, he starts playing his best football.
Yep.
So there's been a fair bit of support for Atlanta. I wouldn't surprise if that continues, especially if they win straight up this week.
How about the speaking of those Saints who haven't been wowing everybody? I'd say maybe especially after the game against Denver last week, now a big game against Atlanta this week. They'll be traveling to the Eagles to take on Philadelphia and Oh, look at that. Carson Wentz just threw an interception to the Saints. 6.5 points is what the Saints will be bringing with them to the city of brotherly love there. Are the Saints about a touchdown better on a neutral?
That's what I got.
That's what you got.
Exactly a 7-point differential between the two teams. And of course, as the markets look at the Saints, let's be very clear about this.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints went 5-0 straight up, 5-0 against the spread without Drew Brees last year.
Yep.
They are so far 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread without Drew Brees this year. And the markets are going to tell you that the Saints are, big downgrade.
And nobody talks about their defense ever. It's amazing.
My adjustment from Drew Brees to Taysom Hill, you know what I adjusted? Zero.
Zero. I was going to say, did you even adjust it?
And it's paid off twice in a row.
Yep. So true. Yep. And that defense continuing to elevate. Again, got better as the year went along, and now they're at a point where a lot of us thought they would have been to start the season. Took them a little longer, but they're exactly where we thought they would be. 6.5 in that game. How about Washington traveling to a lot of people, a lot of rumblings about San Francisco seems to be a team that people are like, I've heard it a dozen times today. Don't sleep on the 49ers. They're getting a little healthier, getting some people back. They still haven't given me an answer on the quarterback situation, but they'll be a 4.5-point favorite against this team that in Washington that has a chance at winning that conference there.
Well, they got a chance to win the division.
Division round. I'm sorry. A chance of winning at the NFC least. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they do.
Yeah, sure they do. I've got a 3-point differential on neutral. Makes it 4.5. Okay. The game, of course, not going to be played in San Francisco.
No, Arizona. Still Arizona?
San Fran is in. Yeah.
It's still Arizona.
They're in Arizona.
Okay.
The next couple of weeks. So, and that's, I believe they're staying and practicing in Arizona. So it's not they're flying there for the game. So it's a full-on point. And we like teams in those spots, where they all get to hang out together. And, the teams that spend the time together away from home during the season, whether it's, the Rams with McVay and the 49ers with Shanahan have been good at that.
Same thing.
Where they go back and stay and then spend the week in West Virginia. They go to a Greenbrier resort and they come out the next week and kill somebody. This may be one of those situations for San Fran. But again, my number on a neutral is a field goal.
Talk to me about this. I don't even know what. I'm shocked there's a line out here, really, because the Steelers have just been, they're pissed. Through no fault of their own, their entire schedule now has been thrown into complete chaos. They are going to be taking on the Buffalo Bills, a big divisional matchup here. Heading to Orchard Park up there, taking Buffalo on. They're bringing 2.5 points. Now, where do you have these two teams rated right now, all things being equal? Are they a 3-point? Are they even on a neutral?
No, I got Pittsburgh 1.5 better on a neutral, which in Buffalo makes it a pick 'em. But you're saying the Steelers are laying what there? But it's going to be a short week for Buffalo.
Buffalo, yes.
It's going to be a short week for Buffalo. They're playing Monday night. But right now, I can't tell anyone to make a bet on the Steelers or the Ravens.
Yep.
They haven't played last week's game yet, let alone this week's game yet, let alone talking about next week's game. So let them finish last week's game first. It's definitely worth noting that the Steelers as a team just lost their bye week, just lost their chance. Think about it. You play the whole season.
Yep.
All right. You got a 6 months where you're stuck every day, and you get 5 days off during that season. Over a 6-month span, you got 5 days to go shoot the shit with your buddies and hang out and whatever it is. And Baltimore just cost them that. You get no vacation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big time.
So I don't know how Pittsburgh's going to react. I have no idea what to do. I don't want to give you, the Steelers haven't played this week. Yep. I can't talk last week's game. Let them finish last week's game. For now, it is, what's the number on that game?
2.5.
Yeah. And like I said, my neutral right now is a pick 'em, but it's not anything I would tell anyone to bet.
And the same thing goes the Monday night game, guys, week 14 next week. The Ravens taking on the Browns in Cleveland. Ravens are a 3-point favorite on the road in Cleveland there. And talk about having no idea what we're going to see. That's a tough one right there, too, as well.
So right now, if the game were played today, and I dropped Baltimore, I think, a touchdown over the course of the last week.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe they should be more. Oh, yeah. Dude, they had to.
Yep.
I made as good a bet as I'll ever make. You know, when the game got rescheduled to Sunday, and there were 4.5s out there with Pittsburgh 4.5, and I'm like, this is crazy. You know, and I released it as a big ticket for the clients, and I think it lasted. You know, it was like the Broncos. It didn't last real long before the game got put. But I got down at 4.5. I'm like, geez, Louise, should be a, you know, I don't know what Baltimore's going to look like next week. You don't know what Baltimore's going to look like next week. Baltimore doesn't know what Baltimore's going to look like next week.
Yep.
I'm very surprised at the lineup for this. You say that Baltimore who?
Cleveland.
Yeah, it was Baltimore and Cleveland.
Cleveland, yeah.
So, again, right now, today, I have the Browns as 5-point road favorites on a neutral.
On a neutral,
which puts them at 6.5 at home. And you said Baltimore's laying 3 there?
On the road. Yep.
There's dumber bets to make than that.
I agree. Yep, I agree. 100% there. Interesting stuff, of course.
I gotta write. I gotta
circle that.
Yeah, that's one of all the ones that stand out. That one. But the Ravens are a really hard team to do anything right now.
Right.
And if everyone's healthy, they'll be fresher than anybody.
And where's that number going to go if they don't beat Pittsburgh? Where's that number going to go?
Depends on what they look like.
Yeah, well, and depends on the quarterback is.
No one knows how to market. Nope. They don't know whether to price the Ravens like that 49ers team that we saw on Thursday Night Football against Green Bay, that there was literally nobody there. They don't know if you price them like that or if you price them like a team that is, you know, culturally and organization-wise, I trust Baltimore's practice squad guys more than I trust any other team's practice squad guys.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
So there's stuff to, you know, it's a hard game to price. It's a hard game to, you know, but I don't think the Ravens should be 3 there. It's a weird number.
If the Ravens were doing this back and forth with the Jets, this might be a little more clarity for it. But they're going into a war with the team that is their arch nemesis. That's always an issue for them one way or the other. So Pittsburgh, Baltimore just happened to be that way. And now they got Cleveland on deck next week. 3 points. If you like Cleveland, you think this number gets, even if they look good and Lamar's back, does this number get any better for Baltimore fans? Well, for the Browns, it could. Yeah, for the Browns, it could.
I'm talking about taking 3 with Cleveland here, not laying with Baltimore.
No, I know that. I'm saying, but if I'm a Baltimore bagger and I like Baltimore, is there any hope that this number gets to be maybe under 3 at some point in the game here? Less than a field goal?
That number's way too high.
You think it's too high? You know? And it ain't going to get worse, right?
Yeah. But it's very hard to tell people to recommend to people, okay, bet on the Ravens, bet against the Ravens. They're a really difficult team to power rate right now.
It's brutal. And Cleveland this week against the Titans. If they blow the Titans out, is there a possibility maybe that the number starts moving a little bit closer to them one way or the other?
Yeah, if Cleveland looks good, but the key issue here, all right, you can ask 10 different, I'm talking about 10 different bettors.
You're still talking from
makers
right
in Vegas. What's the appropriate power rating for the Ravens for next week's game? And you'll get 10 different answers.
The answers, right. I'm just trying to see if the Browns are one way or another are going to I don't think the Browns hold the key to whatever is going to happen next week in that thing. It's going to be all Baltimore and how it ends up working out in that game.
Disagree.
Okay.
If the Browns beat the Titans looked as good as any team in the NFL last week. If the Browns go to Tennessee and win that game,
yes,
and now they're coming home at 9-3. They played Baltimore, if memory serves correct, I'm pretty sure they played week 1 at Baltimore and got annihilated.
Got crushed, yes. Yep, that's correct.
The worst loss of the year.
Yep.
So now they have that team banged up at home. They're 9-3. I think that the Browns, if they beat the Titans, all of a sudden we're going to see, oh, wow, I forgot Cleveland's good.
Exactly. Maybe getting Myles Garrett, maybe getting some of the troops back too.
Garrett's supposed to be back this week. Denzel Ward, not so much.
Yep. Going to be interesting couple of weeks for the AFC North here, guys. But in the meantime, you got some value lying on a couple of these games here that you certainly want to take. And Cincinnati, what else is new? We looked at Cincinnati here. Seems to be the one game that stuck out to us. Cincinnati and Dallas, 3.5 points. Dallas, the look-ahead line, Week 14. Keep that in mind, guys. Also keep in mind, Cyber Week sale continues at WagerTalk's.sportsmemo.com, which means that you can get an all-access pass with Teddy Covers here. Never miss a play. 6 months straight, less than $100 a month, $5.99. Get every one of Teddy's plays from here for the next 180 days for less than $100 a month. You can't go wrong. Head over to sportsmemo.com. Take advantage of that. And also make sure that you guys like this, subscribe to us, come back and join us again. We're running out of weeks to look ahead, but we'll be back again next week looking ahead to Week 15. So on behalf of Teddy Covers, I'm Joe Raineri. Guys, best of luck with your plays. We'll talk to you again next week.